take the simple life. Things underway, two different styles. What I did on the first one was actually homage to Jim Van Voorhees. Everyone know him?
Yeah.
Local?
Yeah.
Great pianist. And Jim had introduced me to a version that he did with My Foolish Heart. And it was so unique, it blew me away. And excuse me, then I took it from there and adapted it, and I started to use some techniques that Bill Evans used. But what you were actually hearing is nothing was settled. Everything was always moving. And this is what basically is going to be the premise of what we're going to go over today, is how does music work? And you know, when you think about the highway system, and we drive, we make left-hand turns, we make right-hand turns. If you were going to go to Publix every day, and I have to make a right, left, go to the stop sign, go 2 miles, and there I'm at Publix. Let's call that a route. In music, we call that a progression. And imagine you had to do this 10 times a day, over and over and over again. Your car went onto auto drive. And that's what starts to this whole thing. You have a destination, you have to start here, you're going there. So with music, here's what goes on. I'm going down US 1 and I'm not turning. It's a nice day out. Traffic's heavy. It's getting kind of boring. Someone just tried to cut me off. But I'm still going left. Now I'm making my left-hand turn in to go to Publix. I'm on my new road. Still going straight. I'm going to get my left-hand turn. Hear how it pulls? So, in music, we have a thing called the circle of fifths. So it's not just magic how things happen. There's actually a logical way it works. Just like on the road system. We know where the ocean is, we know where the river is, we know where US 1 is, and where do we have to go from there? And that's what composers do. So, we're going to go over probably 5 or 6 of the basic chord progressions today on pieces that you've heard time and time again. The first one, you all know Heart and Soul, yes? You've all played that, okay. So it's nothing more than you know it already. Well, do you know that that's used for tens of thousands of songs and symphonies and arias? You would hear it in this song. The same left hand, different tune. Memories? This way. Somewhere in time. So they're all using the same progression. Different melody, different lyrics, different other structures, but underneath That's what's driving the tune. So here comes Smarty Pants Paul McCartney. He writes Yesterday. Do you know what Yesterday uses? Take a guess. Yeah, the same progression. But this is the genius of Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney says, okay, I could do like this. Very boring. Paul McCartney comes in and he does this. And he sets it up. The whole dynamic of the tune, the whole progression now takes a new breathable life. And this is why a lot of the things that the Beatles did will make it into the American Songbook. So I'm going to go right into Yesterday, modulate into another key, just so you can hear it in 2 different keys. It's a beautiful, beautiful tune. Of course, it's about the story of a guy. He says the wrong thing to his girlfriend or wife, and she's mad at him, and he wishes he could take back yesterday. Literally, he's taking just a basic chord progression, making this one little change, and all of a sudden, we have a new tune. Now, let's take it a step further. Now, let's go and take that same progression and turn it upside down and change it. So instead of going, now we're going to do this. You know the song Bewitched? Okay, Bewitched was basically started one way until the jazz guys got a hold of it, and they turned it upside down, used the same chords, but now they have different leading sounds. And it turned into this beautiful thing that Ella Fitzgerald recorded. So here's Bewitched, same chord progression, sounds entirely different. And I'll start with the little recitative that Al always does in the beginning verse. pretty? So, the gorgeous tune, but again, using the same basic premise, then the jazz guys get a hold of it and they said, we're going to change this thing forever. Another example, another one. How many remember Cheek to Cheek, Irving Berlin? Fun tune. How many have danced to that one? All right, okay. Guess what he does? Exactly the same as the last tune. The exact same thing. Same progression, turns it upside down, and it sounds like this. Songs utilizing a basic progression, but it's like a good chef. We're making spaghetti sauce today, and all of a sudden, yeah, but I add a little garlic here, or I add this, or I add that, and all of a sudden it starts to take on a whole nother meaning. So let's continue on this now. So another progression, and probably the most utilized progression of all, is what we call the circle of fifths. So if you think of a clock, let's just go clockwise. C. How many people know music in here? Is this? Okay, C. So I'll speak to the masses. So we're going from C, F, adding one flat, add another flat, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat. Then it goes to sharps, B, E, A, D, G, back to C. Circle fifths. What does it do? Well, it sounds like this. You know the song, All the Things You Are? One of the greatest songs ever written.
You are.
So, A flat, E flat, A flat, D flat. Now he takes a turn, changes, and then jazz musicians say we're going around the horn. So when you're in a jazz jam session, you'll hear the guy say, around the horn. We're starting on E flat, we're starting on F, or whatever. And so all the musicians go, got it, got the memo, and they know where they're at. And those are the secret things. So let's go right into All Things You Are. It was originally written as a ballad. I'm showing my age, I don't remember everything. I am older than most of you, you don't realize that.
Yeah, I do.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay, so this was written by Jerome Kern and Oscar Hammerstein in 1944 for their musical called Broadway Rhythm. Voted the all-time best song ever written.
Wow. Really?
Uno. Numero uno. Why? Because it can play in so many different directions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it as a ballad. It's the way you would hear most of the crooners sing it, and Ella Fitzgerald. And then Charlie Parker stepped in, the great saxophone player, and he did his bebop version. And all of a sudden, they went into this whole other thing. So you'll hear this tune played in those two different versions the most. And then I'm going to play two other examples of it going on. Does this sound too much like a lecture?
Yeah.
All right. Going through the changes? Okay, let's keep on talking about the circle of fifths in my all-time favorite song, Autumn Leaves. So Autumn Leaves, let me get my cheat sheet, was not written for the purpose as we know it today. Autumn Leaves actually was written by a Hungarian composer, Joseph Kozma and Jacques Prévert. Then Johnny Mercer, you remember that name? Yeah. Oh, great American composer. He got a hold of it. He created an American version of it for the lyrics and changed a few things, and it's what we know it is today. So now it's become either a very soulful ballad, it's done in the jazz way, it's done in a multitude of areas. But what drives the whole song is actually Baroque. So you go back to Bach. It's right out of it. So this whole thing is nothing new, but you can hear the basis. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have three different levels of this. We're going to start with Bach. and you'll hear segments of the melody, but I'm going to try to stay away from the melody. Then eventually you're going to hear it as a ballad, the way you would hear, most of the good singers singing. And then Charlie Parker and the jazz greats get a hold of it, and then they have a little fun with it. So Autumn Leaves. By the way, do you remember Roger Williams? Okay, I was his piano tuner for 20 years. So I knew Roger Williams, and this was his opening thing. He played an entirely different ba-da-da-da, da-da-da-da, and that was his. But yeah, I worked for 20 years, but I never really appreciated the song back then, but I do now. Okay. Circle fifth. So I'm going to walk you through it so that you can get it in your head. This time we're starting in G. Right? This will be on the quiz. So just... Okay, here we go. In the style of Bach. You just hear, okay, the music's being put into motion, then it's going to hear, it's going to hear, and it's going to hear. It's a writing technique, and it's been around for centuries. So let's continue on. Here's another one. Same type of thing, different key, entirely different style. Fly Me to the Moon.
Oh.
Same circle fifths. Entirely different though, but what's driving is the whole thing is still circle fifths. be on the quiz, so just make sure you check all the right things. So that's the circle fifths. Again, thousands of tunes are used the same type of process. But everyone always asks, like, because I play a lot of cocktail gigs, and everyone says, how do you remember all those? Well, what we do, they're all in this category. Oh, this is in that category, that's in that category. And all of a sudden your mind says, okay, I know where I'm at. This is how I'm kind of categorizing everything. And that's how you do it. Now, what's the stinker part about it is then you have this singer that walks up and says, I want to sing that song in D flat. And then we go into another thing. So let's continue on to another progression. So this is basically very similar to the very first one we did with a little change into it. And do you remember the song A Nightingale sang on Berkeley Square?
Yes.
Gorgeous song. So this comes back to, the composer was Eric Moschwitz and Manny Schwinn in 1940. It's really one of my tunes that I connect with. It's just a beautifully written tune. So it's basically almost like that very first thing that we talked about when we were written. Now this one is going. So they're related, but with a little change, and all of a sudden it changes all completely. This is a beautiful song. Excuse me?
Do you sing also?
Poorly. But you can come here and sing Thursday night at the Blake Library. I do backup vocals in our Beatles
Oh, you're going
bands.
to do the Beatles?
Yeah, I'm the Beatles Reimagined. So you're going to hear me in the background.
Okay.
But I'm still trying to get, as the word goes, cojones to sing. My daughter is a big karaoke fan, and she can sit there till her day. The sun goes up till the sun goes down, and she loves it. It just was not my cup of tea. I always work from here. All right. How about now we go to the number 1 song, or number 2 song actually. This is the number 2 song of all time. Anyone want to take a guess? Play it again, Sam.
Really?
Play it again, Sam. What is it? As time goes by. Okay, so here's another example of very related to the song that I just did. It's very related. But it's built on these 2-5-1 progressions, but very obscure, and some little changes into it. So what I'm going to do, the tune basically is this. That's the tune, all right? Now, if we kept this. So now we are the creative chef that says, I'm not going to use garlic. I'm going to use something else that's going to change the entire complex. Now we get into the obscure jazz voicings on how the real good jazz players. By the way, we have a very famous wife here, Carol Blaze here. Her husband Paul was one of the really greats in that area, and that's what he did very well. But basically, they're reinventing underneath how it could support a song. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 3 different voicings as time goes by. In fact, Matt, where's Matt? There's Matt. We were just talking about that earlier today. I was at his house working on his music desk as time goes by, and we were talking about this very thing. But it's really neat when you all of a sudden you hear it entirely different. So this is as time goes by with 3 different voicings. Hopefully this doesn't fall off. How are we doing with time? This goes to 8:30, right? I miss your early bird.
That's fine.
All right, so in your programs, this is now audience participation time. You didn't know you were going to sing, and if you can't sing, just mouth the words. Do you see where the lyrics for Our Love Is Here to Stay?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know what's significant about this song?
No.
Take a wild guess. For all the years that George Gershwin wrote music, guess what was his very last thing that he wrote?
Oh, really?
This is it. This showed the ultimate maturity in his writing. Now, George and his older brother Ira became a team. And they complemented each other. George had the facility and he had these ideas. Ira had the gift of the gap. He understood how to make lyrics stick in your head. In music, we call that the hook. I want to hold your hand. Our love is here to stay. That's not what the tune was actually labeled for. It was here to stay. So George died of a brain hemorrhage, a brain tumor, in 1937. And this was written for a show called The Golden Follies. and he died a year later. So he never got to see the production, and Ira actually finished it. And he came up with the idea of these lyrics. It is very clear, our love is here to stay. Not for a year, but ever and a day. The radio and the telephone and the movies that we know, maybe just be passing fancies, and the time might go. But oh my dear, here's the hook. Our love is here to stay. That's what sticks in your head, right? Mm-hmm. So, I'm going to put this to very slow music. And if you can sing it, great. If you can just word it. But what I want you to do is appreciate the genius on how Ira now figured out how to make something that's very understandable, very relatable, and most important, it sticks in your ear. This is what we call an earworm. It gets in your ear and you say, oh, and you forget, you just remember it forever. It's fair. Genius writing. So we're going to continue on this genius writing. We only have a few more minutes, but I cannot exclude one of the great geniuses that's coming along, that's been here for a number of years. He's kind of an old guy now, but he's our new old guy, Billy Joel. Now, why is Billy Joel's music? Well, guess what he uses? He uses a lot of the same techniques as the American Songbook composers, right out of the playbook. But he puts it up with a different spin that makes it very interesting. How many New Yorkers do we have here? Any? Oh. You made the grand exit? Okay, New York State of Mind. the old ragtime. Why not? It was available. It's a great idea. Change it all together, and all of a sudden he has this lady. That's why it's a great song. That's why he's a great performer, a great artist, as he is. But his music will be up there with the Gershwin when you take some of the really creative things that he did. It's pretty amazing. So let's continue on the contemporary stuff. So let's go back to the Beatles. Sorry. Do you realize how many songs they wrote?
Oh.
So in a 3-year period, it was 250 that were published. That were published. That's not how many they wrote, that's how many they published. A 3-year period. So if you go back in time to find anyone who has that amount of library, body of work, you have to go to Schubert, then you have to go all the way back to Mozart. Mozart had 30 years to do this. Schubert had 50 years to do it. Beatles did it in 3 years. Yeah, I mean, yes.
They're all classical origin. I play the classical guitar. It's classical origin. Many of their songs.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's amazing. So Paul grew up listening to his dad. His dad was a jazz musician. He was a sax player, a sax and woodwind player, and he played in the dance bands. So that's what Paul was growing up listening to. So when I'm 64, that's right out of his dad's playbook. It's right out of it. So let's take Blackbird. The song Blackbird, beautiful song. But what's amazing is how he uses the changes to get back home. And it's right out of the jazz library, right out of it. And you'll hear, at first it's just a very simple 3-chord progression, and then he has to walk backwards, and he has to find a way to walk backwards. And it's a whole series of these suspended chords, and as they resolve eventually, you come back to the key of G, and it works. So 3 years ago, I was in a terrible car accident 7 years ago, and ended up having neck surgery. So I ended up in the neck brace. This was during COVID, and so I wasn't allowed out of the house. I wasn't allowed to do anything. So the neurosurgeon said, if I was you, I'd just play piano as much as you can because my left hand had gone numb. I said, okay. So I called a couple of my touring buddies who I work for, and I said, I'm in a predicament. I said, this might be a good time to jumpstart me to get me to practice. And so I connected with Larry Brown, who's a world-renowned touring artist. He said, let's have some fun with this. So he kicked my butt. So I had a 3-hour a day regimen. For me, that was a lot, as much as my body could tolerate. But he really pushed me on listening to things differently. So as part of my graduation thing that I had to do for him, he says, I want you to take a pop tune and change it. Make it your own. So I took Blackbird, and this I've called Blackbird Meets Memphis. So you're going to hear the traditional Blackbird, but then we go into this Memphis kind of a chill, okay? And it goes back and forth. It's kind of fun. By the way, do you know what the song's about?
It's a strange lyrics to it.
Excuse me?
Blackbird, bye-bye. It's a strange lyrics.
A blackbird in Liverpool in the 60s was a black young lady. This is a civil rights song. Blackbird comes out of the dead of night, spreads her wings to fly. So this was segregation. It wasn't just here. I mean, it was worldwide what was going on. And this was Paul's homage to the civil rights. So next time you listen to that, listen to the lyrics. It's pretty amazing. It's right out of rec, and by the way, that was Paul playing the piano part on that. So, yeah, it's just really good stuff. So I think what we're gonna do, I wanted to do a bunch of other things, but I think we're just running out of time.
That first version was amazing, by the way. The first one, I never heard it that way when you played the first one.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Um,
I've heard that many times. I played that way. I wish I could play like that.
yeah. Let's land on a high note. Route 66. I might need some help. So thank you very much. I hope that you learned a few little things. Hope you appreciate some of these tunes, and we'll catch you around sometime. Oh, well, I hope there's tickets. There is a fully endowed program at the Blake Library this Thursday. We started a group called Beatles Reimagined. And we do a lot of the big Beatles stuff, but we get into a lot of the quirky things. Like, do you know the only song the Beatles did about 3 deaths? Mm-hmm. Maxwell Silverhammer. Yeah. Kills 3 people. His girlfriend, the teacher, the judge. So, yeah, listen to the lyrics. That's pretty good. And have you heard the latest Beatles tune? Now and Then? The brand new one?
Yeah, covered one.
Yes. So you're going to hear that Thursday. So it's at the Blake Library. It starts at 6 o'clock. There are no tickets required. There's no fee. This was part of the Betty Lottie Foundation. And but you have to get there early to get a seat. So you have to get there.
What library was that?
Blake Library, right around the corner from you.
Right on Monterey Road.
Yeah. So, but you get to hear Now and Then. You haven't heard the song yet?
No.
I was just reading about it.
Well, let me leave with this without the lyrics. Here is it. So Yoko found this recording, and of course they had hundreds of these recordings they had done that never did anything with, because it was a fast routine that they were knocking these things out. And this is one of the songs, and this is a mature John Lennon voice. This is a very mature. So you hear him in the early stages, and as he got older, as he got into the imagined years and so forth, it was a different voice. So this recording came out, and so Yoko went to Paul and says, you know, we got something here. And they founded a special AI sound engineer who dissected it, and they were able to take John's voice out of the equation, and they put it over here and they remastered it. I'm telling you, have a Kleenex available when you listen to it. And then Paul re-recorded his part, Ringo re-recorded his stuff, and they were able to take stuff out for George, and there you hear George with modern production. This is Now and Then without the lyrics.
What's the name of the song?
Now and Then.
Oh, Now and Then.
Yeah.